our honorary guest, Olga Mirai. So, can everybody hear me? No? Okay. What about now?
You don't need the mic, just stand up.
Yeah, okay, all right, I will. So Olga, I mean, it's such a great honor, Olga. Thank you so much for being here. When we initially started Sahayeta, we went to Olga. I said, Olga, we don't know what to do. We're just a bunch of, people just trying to do something. And Olga said, go do something on your own. Just go and find out what you want to do. I remember, it was just clearly sitting in her living room with Santos and having pizza at her house. And here we are, after 5 or 6 years organizing film festival, working with kids in Nepal and doing free health clinic for the Nepali, Tibetan, and the Bhutanese here, and then our goal is to bring community together, not just the Nepali community, but the Tibetan, Bhutanese, and the whole Bay Area community together. So I would like to, we don't have to introduce Olga. Everybody knows Olga, but for the folks who are new to Nepal Youth Foundation, I would like to read a brief bio about Olga. So in Nepal, NYF kids call her Olga Didi. So everybody knows her as Olga Didi, meaning older sister. So as an honorary president of NYF, Olga Mirai is a living proof that getting older does not mean slowing down. Born in 1925, Olga came with her parents and sisters to U.S. Like all of us, she was 6 years old. After graduation from Columbia University, she earned a law degree from George Washington University, where she was one of a handful of female, sorry, my eyes here. Yes, female students. Olga worked her way through as a researcher and a writer for the famed muckraking columnist Drew Pearson. Wow. With her law degree in hand, she found no law firm could hire women. So Olga knocked on the door of the California Supreme Court, where she became a research attorney for Chief Justice Phil Gibson. When he retired, Olga joined the law staff of new Justice Stanley Moss. During her 37-year tenure at the court, Olga helped to write important decisions in the areas of civil rights, women's rights, and environmental policy. So she retired from law in 1992 to launch yet another career helping impoverished children in Nepal. Annually, Olga spends half the year in Sausalito, California, raising funds for NYF, and the other 6 months in Nepal overseeing NYF projects, redefining just a Didi can do. And I visited the nutrition home a couple of years ago, and it's just so wonderful. I got there, and you feel like your soul, being a clinician myself, the hospital can only do so much for a sick person, but what the nutrition home and what Olga does for the kids, it's just so amazing. So the NYF staff are here. We're going to have a panel discussion, which is going to be led by Dechen from the Tibetan community at the end. So please take some time to connect with NYF. So Olga, my great honor to have you here. So we would like to have you say some few words.
Do I need a microphone or can you hear me? Yes? No? Can you hear you? Maybe? No. Okay. I'm here because I want to give you some context about the film you're about to see. I will tell you what happened before, how this project came about, and then Robin Woodland from the NIAF office will talk to you about what we're doing now. In 1999, Som Panaru, who then was an employee of NYF and is the new president, I stepped down a couple of years ago, called me in November and said, Olga Didi, you can't believe what I just read in the Kathmandu Post. I said, what? He said, I just read that thousands of girls are about to be bonded away in western Nepal in the Taro community for Mage, which is a big festival in the middle of January. Can you believe it? They're going to be sold for $50 a year to go to big cities and work for rich families. And I said, you've got to be kidding. This is the 21st century. It can't happen. So he said, what do you say that I go and find out what's going on and see what we can do? 2 days later, he was on the bus for a 14-hour bus ride to the Don district. He arrived there, and he talked to the families. And it was, he asked all the fathers mostly, why are you selling your daughter for $50 a year? And they all said, A, we need the money, and B, this is an honored tradition in our society. My wife did it, her mother did it, this is what we do. And this is an aside, but this is why this was not shocking. The Tarus, for either hundreds or thousands of years, nobody knows how long, lived in this area of West Nepal, southwest Nepal on the Indian border, and it was pestilential for malaria. No outside person could come or they'd be gone. In 1950, when a cure for malaria, when they got DDT, the smart people came down from the hills, and these farmlands were owned communally. They talked these poor Taru, illiterate farmers, there were no schools, out of there. It was like the Indians buying Manhattan for a bag of beans. And so these poor farmers ended up as tenant farmers living in a shack on the land they used to own. They worked for petty, for crop. They didn't get any money. So if they needed money for clothing for the festival, or for medical care, or for the wedding of a daughter, they would borrow money from the landlord, and their signature was their thumbprint, and the landlord charged huge interest fees, and so they could never, ever, ever repay the money, and the debts descended to their sons. So it was a form of slavery. So this was not shocking to them. To the credit of the Nepali government, in 2000, they abolished the custom. They said, all debts are forgiven, this is illegal, you're free. You're free. You have no education, you have no land, and many of these farmers were thrown off the land. The government promised them either land or training, but didn't keep their promise. So while they worked on the land, if the landlord, by the way, every employer is called a landlord in that area, whether they own land or not. If the landlord needed somebody to clean his house, he'd say, send me your wife, send me your daughter. And they do whatever needed to be done in the house free. So when they were thrown off the land, and they needed money even more desperately, they started to sell their daughters to people from the cities. So some talked to the fathers, and they said, this is not shocking in our community. We've been doing this now for a couple of generations. And some said, look, I'm going to come back from Magi, which was middle of 15th of January. I'll come back from Magi, and you bring your daughter home for the festival, or don't sell her, and I'm going to promise you that we'll make up your daughter's wages somehow. And so he went back. I think he talked to 28 fathers. He went back a couple of months later, and every father had brought the daughter home. And so then the question was, what are we going to do for them? We hadn't really decided. We talked about it. We thought maybe we would say, how much money did you get? It was like $50 a year for the girl that the father got. She didn't get anything. And the girls were terribly abused. They were sexually abused. They were beaten regularly. They were not educated. Very, very few went to school. It was a classic tale of slavery. We thought maybe we'd say, how much did you get from the labor contractor? Here's the money. But Sol was a very smart guy, and he decided he would mosey around the villages first and see what the women said. And so he talked to the women in the village, and they said, whatever you do not give our husbands money, because it'll be gone, and a lot of alcoholism in the area. And they talked and talked and talked, and they came up with this solution. Each family who would bring their daughter home, or agree not to sell her, would get a baby piglet. Later they had the choice of a goat. They could sell the piglet, raise it on kitchen scraps, sell it at the end of the year for about the same amount of money they got for their daughters. In the meantime, we would put the girl in school, we'd pay all her school expenses, and most important, we started a very, very dynamic education campaign to turn the community against the practice. We had street plays, we had program. We still have a program every Sunday night where the returned girls talked about how they suffered. We had posters. We had anti-Kamlahari clubs in all the schools. And we worked very, very hard. And the upshot is that as of now, we have rescued 12,500 girls. To live with their families, put them in school, and most important of all, empower them. These are the most empowered girls in Nepal. I mean, I would be scared if I were employed without a Kamlahari. They are so energetic and so smart and so committed to, and the custom is just about eradicated. Last summer, after some demonstrations by the Nepali girls, which you'll see a featured girl here is Urmila, who we rescued, the government declared the practice illegal, and now you can go to the police so that's what we've been doing. The empowerment is the important part of it. This film was not made by us, but it features a young, very dynamic girl called Urmila, who was working in Kathmandu for a woman she called Cruel Ma'am, because that's what she was, a very prominent politician. And she was more or less locked in to the house, not allowed to go out. One of the things we did when we decided to embark on this awareness campaign, we brought some of the girls who we had rescued, who seemed to have this interest and talent, to Kathmandu for them to write plays themselves about their bonding and how they suffered. Because the idea was there's no electricity in the villages, there's no television, and this is their only game in town, so they would do, perform these plays. And we brought them to a drama school in Kathmandu called Gurukul. One day, the son of Cruel Ma'am actually was going to the Gurukul drama school. And one day he brought home a brochure from the school. And Urmila, who you'll see in this film, looked at that brochure and she saw some of the girls she had known from her village in that play. And she thought, people really do care about Kamlahari. There's somebody who cares. And our office was 5 minutes away from where she was being held. And she called a few times, but when somebody picked up the phone, she was so scared she would put it down. Anyway, so you will see her in this film. This has been one. I think there are somewhere under 300 girls left in bondage, and we cannot find out where they are, but we'll find them. And these girls are now. Last year, the government declared Kamlahari Freedom Day. I mean, you can't imagine, when we started, we called a lot of NGOs together and we said, look, this is a huge problem, 20,000 girls bonded away, and we're a tiny organization, we can't tackle this problem ourselves, please help us, we have some ideas. Nothing. Now the government, as a result of the pressure that the girls themselves put on, and we led them with demonstrations, I mean, you can't imagine. The government has declared this practice illegal, and it's now finished, except for the 300 girls, which we'll find. The girls themselves, when they come back, if they're Robin will talk to you about what we do. If they're 16 or 17 and don't want to sit in, they've never been to school, don't want to sit in a classroom with 6-year-olds, then we have a special program, a very intense literacy program. And then we put them into vocational training, which is, we have hundreds of girls doing that so that they can earn a living. So last year, on Kamlahari Freedom Day, I was out there, I was invited to go there, and I marched with the girls a little bit, and then we sat on a platform, and the Minister of Women and Children were there, and a lot of big shots, and I sat there and I thought, today is 13 years to the day that I came here the first time. And I remember seeing a I couldn't understand what they were saying. Some man was talking about sending a girl back, and there was this little girl, maybe 9, 10 years old, sobbing by his side. She didn't want to go back. I couldn't understand what he was saying, but later I found out that this was not her father, it was her uncle. And under Nepali custom, if the brother dies and the children have no mother, it's the father's brother who's responsible for the children. He saw those children right away to raise money for his son's wedding. I didn't know that until later, but anyway. So here I sat, I was thinking about that, and these crying children, 13 years later, and below me were 30 girls who had just passed their former Kamlahari, just passed their college entrance exam, and were going on to college. And I thought, okay. We didn't make this film. It was made by another organization that we asked to come in to help us, which they did after a few years. And it features Irmela Choder, who is one of... Now, Irmela is now an international star. She goes to Oslo and talks before human rights groups and to the UN. And she was blinded away at 6. She couldn't even walk across the river. She was carried on her brother's shoulders across the river. She couldn't even reach the counter to wash dishes at 6. And she was bonded till she was 17 years old. So you will see her here, and then Robin will talk about what we're doing for the girls after we take them home besides educating them. Okay?